Today I'm going to talk about the new album by Mr. Big. It's their 10th album and it's called 10. Supposedly their last album. I'll get to that in a minute. But if you don't know, Mr. Big is one of the most super of the super groups of the late 80s. They released their self-titled debut album in 1989, which I recently did a review of, so I'll link that at the end screen. I don't need to go into much of their history, but basically the core group was Eric Martin on vocals, who has been in a lot of bands. Billy Sheehan on bass, who previously played with David Lee Roth. Paul Gilbert on guitar, who has played with Racer X and has had solo albums. And the original drummer was Pat Torpey, but unfortunately, he passed away in 2018 from Parkinson's disease. And they had a few other drummers, but now they have a new drummer named Nick DiVirgilio. Sorry if I butchered that. And he's played in many progressive rock bands like Spock's Beard and Big Big Train. Now, I said this is their last album only because they're currently in the middle of what they call their last tour, or the Big Finish tour. And I also read that in many of the other reviews that it was meant to be their last album. The album has 10 songs plus a bonus track, so really 11 songs, but I guess the band wanted to say 10 songs because the album is called 10. The album is 46 minutes long, so let's talk about the songs now.
That's what I say.
The album opener is called Good Luck Trying. This has a very throwback late 60s blues sound, very reminiscent of Jimi Hendrix's Manic Depression. And with this band, all the band members are pretty much equals. So Paul Gilbert's guitar playing and Billy Sheehan's bass playing go hand in hand. They all sound great. The new drummer fits in nicely with lots of drum fills, and Eric Martin sounds as good as he has ever sounded. So I thought it was a good way to open the album. After this is a song called I Am You, and it was more of a laid-back rock song, not necessarily a power ballad, but it had an arena rock vibe. I think I really liked the drumming on the song as well. It just stood out because it sounded very unique. But apart from the drumming, the guitar and bass sounds very good. They use more of a cleaner tone on this track. So far, everything on this album is sounding pretty good. After this, they followed it up with a song called Right Out of Here. And the thing that stands out on this song is the Middle Eastern guitar riff, which is used throughout the song. But otherwise, the song sounds like a late 80s hard rock type of song. The thing that stood out on this song was Paul Gilbert's guitar solo. I think it really fits well with the vibe of this song. After this is Sunday Morning Kinda Girl. This one had some psychedelic undertones and a 60s rock sound. I thought it had a bouncy rhythm and a little bit of an alternative rock feel. For some reason, it sounded like Stone Temple Pilots. The guitar solo sounded like it was played on a kazoo for some reason. The bass guitar sounds very good. For some reason, it sounds low in the mix, but it was just enough. Next is a slower blues rock song called Who We Are. This has a very smooth sound and a big chorus. Eric Martin gives a very good vocal performance on this. The guitar sound reminded me of some of the rock bands of the late 60s. I felt it was very emotional about going through life. One of the lines is, everybody stumbles and falls. So it's one of those songs that can mean a lot of different things to different people. We're about halfway through the album, and the next song is called As Good As It Gets. It was a very upbeat rock song with some bright and clean guitar tones, and the bass guitar had more of a presence on this song. Some of the guitar riffs reminded me of the rock music of the 70s. The guitar solo really stood out, and Billy Sheehan had some great bass playing on the song, especially at the end. It was another song with a very upbeat vibe. Then the next song is called What Were You Thinking? Sounded like some of that old-time rock and roll, had a very energetic rhythm, and the type of song that you could stomp your feet to. The song just sounds like the guys were having fun while they played it. This slows down on the next song called Courageous. It was a blues rock song. I like the guitar tone on this one. Sounded like they turned up the distortion a little on this, but at the same time it had a little bit of a psychedelic rock sound. The bass guitar could also be heard very well. I also like how they picked up the pace on the second part of the song right before the guitar solo. The next song is called Up On You. This one reminded me of the Rolling Stones. It had that typical sound with the big guitar chords, that typical sound. The song had a cool guitar tone with some slight distortion. I could also hear some piano in the song. This was not too bad, and it had a very bluesy sound. The last official song is called The Frame. This was a ballad, but it sounded like a song from the 70s. And what I mean by that, it had a softer radio-friendly sound with acoustic guitars, melodic vocals, and there were some electric guitars, and they sounded very bright, so it was a pretty good song. Then there was a bonus track called 8 Days in a Row. This was pretty good. It had a very funky and bluesy sound. It had a different vocalist. I believe it's Paul Gilbert on vocals. If I'm incorrect, you can let me know in the comments. But it sounds very different from the rest of the songs. Still very good. The guitar solo was awesome. I like the funky bass playing. Billy Sheehan finally has a song where he can show off his playing. I thought that was like lacking a little, and I'll get to that in a minute. So now for my final thoughts. It's a very good Mr. Big album. It felt it was more of a rock album as opposed to some of their earlier albums that were more leaning towards hair metal at the time period. But it's more of a straightforward blues rock album. There's lots of influence from the 60s and 70s in the music. I think the new drummer sounds really good. He made a great addition to the band, and everyone else sounds really great. I think Billy Sheehan's bass playing was not as prominent as I remember from other albums, but it might have to do with the mixing. I think the exception being that last song, but otherwise, it's a very good album. My score is an 8 out of 10. Let me know what you think of this album. In the meantime, check out my retro review right there of the first Mr. Big album. I recorded it about a month ago, so you can check that out. Please give this video a like. It helps me with the YouTube algorithm. Please hit the bell for notifications so you can get up to date every time I release a new video. You can find me on Facebook and you can find me on TikTok. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.